I'm really annoyed that I couldn't think of an appropriately meta joke to open this thing with. So news broke earlier today that there is going to be a Deadpool animated series being produced by Donald Glover, and it's going to be appearing on FXX, which is right now the current home of Archer. So that should be nothing but good news. This is going on a network that has no problem with more adult-oriented animation, which means they're not going to shy away from the audience that they cultivated with the movie. And Donald Glover has shown himself in the past to be very much a comic book geek, and he is going to obviously, you know, have a reverence for this character, so it's going to be right up there on screen. So why do I not think this is a very good idea? Well, it's kind of weird, and much like when I saw, say, the Blade Runner 2049 trailer and was like, something's not right, I had to reverse engineer to try and figure out why, when I read that news, I wasn't going, yeah, because that logically should have been my reaction. I'm always touting the benefits of animation. I have a sub-series called Animation Junkie. I love animation, and yet I think that this is the wrong fit for this property. And I'm gonna do my best to try and explain how. Basically, the short version, and I'll expand on this, the short version is that I think Deadpool will work best the more in contrast to the world he's in the character is. That's why he works very well on the comic book page, where there is granted some very ridiculous stuff going on, but it's all being taken so seriously, and you know, that whole medium takes itself so seriously that him being as irreverent as he is in contrast to that. That's where you get a lot of the humor from. I mean, you know, there's just the randomness of it too, but that's at the heart of the humor. He is the wacky guy in the straight world. And that's very much the case with the movie as well. He's like, everything going on around him, pretty po-faced, pretty straightforward, but he's the one who's nuts. So the problem with putting him in a cartoon is that inherently an animated world is not as grounded. He's not going to stand out as much in contrast to this animated setting. I mean, he is a living cartoon, and you know, that's not like in a Roger Rabbit sense, but I mean, like, he is so cartoonish in his behavior and everything else that in that live action movie it stands out all the more. And it also stands out in the comic books for a similar reason, even though visually it all still matches. The thing about animation, particularly American animation, which is what this is gonna be. It's a little bit different in Japan with the history of anime and everything else. But with American animation, there just isn't the same sort of standard of what reality is. So when you insert a wacky character into a literal cartoon world, it doesn't have that same contrast where it feels as fun or it feels as fresh. And again, to try and explain why it still works in the comics, even though that is hand-drawn, it's because the comic books had already for decades set a standard of, we take this seriously. I mean, comics hadn't always been serious, but certainly since the 80s, that had been the standard. We take this super serious. So when this guy was prepared to tweak the nose of all these other characters who were taking themselves so serious in this medium that took itself so serious, it worked. Cartoons as a medium, again, particularly American cartoons, don't take themselves very serious. So there isn't that baked in sort of there isn't a baked in seriousness to the medium that he's able to subvert. So it all has to exist completely within the world of the cartoon itself. And I'm not saying it can't do that. I'm not saying they can't create a more serious, you know, for lack of a better comparison, you know, Spawn the animated series kind of world to drop Deadpool in, and there can be some fun had in that. But that, because animation just doesn't have the inherent po-facedness of comic books or live action film, that the contrast isn't as severe, and I feel it's just going to lessen the character a bit. And to sort of firm this up for myself, I went and I checked out some of the animated Deadpool stuff that is out there. I mean official stuff, I'm not talking fan work, but there was an animated special film DVD thing, Wolverine vs. Hulk, that Deadpool appeared in, and that was pretty good. It was about as good as it was going to be. Nolan North voiced him for that. That worked pretty well. But, you know, he was a side character on that, so a little hard to get a gauge on. He also appeared in Ultimate Spider-Man, voiced by Will Friedle. And wow, he was annoying. Like, really gratingly irritating. Like, that was bad. That hurt. And that was a case where they really leaned into the excessive cartoonishness. It was like they tried to make him a Looney Tunes character, and boy, it hurt. I mean, part of it was just the pitch on the vocal performance. It just bore into my ear. It was not good. Then, I also checked out some of the stuff from the Deadpool video game, and again, it's not bad, but there's something about how irreverent he is in a quote-unquote real-world setting that I think made him work, but I would argue even better than he does on the comic book page. There's something about somebody that ridiculous existing in what seems to be the real world that to me actually elevates it. The base level impact of just how ridiculous he is gets elevated even beyond his comic book origins. So to bring it back to animation, where just the standard of what is real and what is serious is completely different from live action or even comic books, I think it's going to get old. And I think it's going to get old a lot quicker than they expect it to. Because, I mean, obviously, look, there can be very funny animations. There can be very funny animations aimed at adults. I mean, FX's own Archer, I mean, proves that. And I love Archer. But I think to myself, would I tune in week after week to watch him bounce around like Daffy Duck? And that's not me presuming a mood on the thing, but the Deadpool's appeal is how wacky he is. And you put him in a literal cartoon, and the Looney Tunes comparison it gets all the stronger. Now, I suppose it could be, well, why couldn't it be more in line with how he appeared in Wolverine versus Hulk? The thing is, though, that was a more toned down version of the character in terms of embracing the wackiness, the fourth wall breaking. All that was gone. He just kind of cracked wise now and then. At this point, I think the expectation has been set by the movie that they're not going to settle for just that. They're going to lean into it at least as hard as the movie leaned into it, if not more, because it's animation and you can get away with more. And again, I think that's just going to cheapen the character a bit, and we're just going to end up with something closer to his appearance in Ultimate Spider-Man, which again, oh boy. And the thing is, even just beyond the contrast of him clashing with how serious comic books are, or how serious we expect, a real world set superhero film to be, a lot of the base of his humor, aside from that contrast, is just being wacky and random. And cartoon shows right now are awash in wacky random. That's basically the entirety of Cartoon Network's output at this point, whether it's part of Adult Swim or for kids. That's kind of the bread and butter of modern animation right now, is wacky random humor. And I don't know if Deadpool's gonna stand out the way he would have, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or so. Now, is this me saying this is a horrible idea and it can't work? No, I think it is possible. It could still work, but I think there's a lot stacked against it. And until I start to see footage come out of this, it's something I am going to be really skeptical of, because I think there's a lot of baggage in terms of what American animation, what people are used to seeing from American animation, that is going to work against it. And I think just the inherent nature of the character and where he plays best, I think we're going to find animation might not be it. Certainly not on any kind of an ongoing long-term basis. So, I'll be curious. I'm trying to be hopeful. My opinion on Donald Glover's involvement, it's kind of up and down. I haven't seen Atlanta, so I don't really know too much about his output as a creative force, so I can't really judge that one way or the other. But I'm intrigued, but I'm not jumping up and down, which, as someone who loves animation and loves comic books, I should be, and yet I'm not. So I had to kind of pick apart as to why. Wanted to share those thoughts with you, and I have a feeling I'm going to get called an idiot on this one. And I'm overdue for that, I think. It's been a while since people have been calling me an idiot en masse. So, how much of an idiot do you think I am? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, check me out on Twitter at Council of Geeks. Give a listen to the Council of Geeks podcast or the Punch Like a Girl podcast, both available on iTunes and Stitcher. And until next time, this council is adjourned.